Okay, so I have started the recording. So I'll just
Okay.
wrap up what we have seen in the last sessions. So in terms of payable module, okay. So what we have seen till now is that the configuration. So when we say configuration, so it is the invoice related configurations that we have seen. So that is primarily the invoice if you want to create it. So what are the setups that you will need? So all those things we have seen, and also we have seen the creation of the bank and the supplier and all those things. Okay. So now we have created the invoice. Okay. And we have seen few options. So wherein we can use this distribution set. So I'll just put it high level. So whatever we discussed. Okay. So from there we can basically start. So this is the screen where we can create the invoice. Okay. So this is the landing page. So we saw this option, that is scanned invoice. So scanned invoice is nothing but an option wherein I can scan or I can send this PDF file to designated email address given by Oracle. Okay. So this process, what it will do is that it will create the invoice automatically. So if the data, if the record fields are in the format, so Oracle will create the invoice automatically. So which we can see it here. Okay. And others are like the recent invoices. So if I have probably if I want to change it to 3 days, 7 days, I can change it. So simply I'll have to click this days. Okay. So that's about it. So since this is the test environment, so which is refreshed recently, so I don't have any transaction. So probably recently I don't have it, but I might be having it before 7 days or 10 days dating. Okay, so that is about it. And hold we have seen. So when we are seeing this setup, so we saw two things. So one is this system hold and the other one is manual hold. Okay, so that is about it. And approval is nothing but the invoice approval. So which we will see today. In today's session, we will see the invoice approvals also. Okay. So how do we configure? So I'll just tell you the changes. So it's the simple one that we have. So let's explain that. Okay. And then the prepaid. So prepaid is nothing but the advance. So let's say I want to pay in advance the amount. Okay. The invoice amount. And when the bill comes from the supplier, so I will have to adjust or I'll have to knock off with this particular advance amount. Okay, so that's a scenario of prepaid. So if there are any prepaid invoices, so that will be populated here. So now here if you see, so I just click this style, so which has more than 10 prepaid invoices. Okay, so you'll see this also today. Okay, so so these are the things that I have planned to have it for today's session. So quickly I'll create one invoice. Okay, so when we talk about invoice, so there are two scenarios. So one is that with purchase order and without purchase order. So for what scenario we will have with purchase order? So with purchase order as a scenario wherein so most of the scenarios if you see, so you will have your purchase order. So purchase order is nothing but a document that is prepared by the procurement team to purchase this particular item. Okay, so the concerned department will raise a request, and using this request, so we will release the purchase order to the supplier. So on the basis of this document, purchase order document, basically supplier will deliver us the item. So this we have a process called P2P. So that is procurement to payment. So this is the process that we have. Okay. So this we will talk about in detail. So when we see the P2P flow. Okay. So now what we are talking about is with without the purchase order, which means let's say this purchase that I'm making is for the stationary needs that I have on immediate basis. So for which I cannot raise this purchase order and then go back and then create the invoice. So it's bit of a lengthy process which I don't want to follow, or I probably want to do it on emergency basis because supplier wants the payment on immediate basis. Okay, so that's the scenario that we are talking about here. That is identifying the purchase order or the invoice with the purchase order. Okay, so first we'll create one invoice. Okay, so this would be basically This would be basically the standard invoice that we are creating. Okay. So here, if you see, so we have three things. So for any invoice, a payable invoice, so you will have three things. So one is that header information. So here on top, whatever we are seeing, so these are our header information. Okay. So now here, if you see, so business unit is nothing but it's the actual unit where we incur the expenses or generate the revenue. So since we are talking about the payable module, it is the expense that we are incurring. Okay. So how are we writing or how are we entering these details? That is, this is the supplier and this is the business unit. So I will have my invoice copy which vendor will give me. So wherein I know this is the supplier, this is the supplier side, business unit and the invoice number. So here if you see, so this field is not the selectable option. So I will have to input because I will have my physical invoice copy. So that is the number that I'm going to input here. Okay. So in this case, I'm saying this is my invoice number. Okay. So the amount that I'm entering is for the percent of 10,000 rupees. Okay. So now here if you see, so there are different types of invoices. So when we talk about the actual invoice or the standard invoice, so this is the option, that is first option. Okay. So the remaining options will come back. Okay. So for now, I'll just use this one to create the invoice. Okay, so now here if you see, so this is the invoice date. So invoice date again you will see. So as I said, so we have three things for an invoice: header, line, and distribution. So this invoice date we are the accounting date. We will see at the header, lines, and the distribution. Okay, and then the payment term. So the payment term is nothing but when I'm going to pay this amount, because when we talk about the stationery purchase, of course I will make the purchase and then record the transaction in the system. But then there are other scenarios as well wherein I am purchasing this raw material for my production or the consumption. Okay. So now in this scenario, so I will have to pay in terms which could be 7 days, 14 days, or probably whatever the days that we have agreed with the supplier. Okay. So now if we say this is immediate, which means that whatever the date that I'm creating as an invoice date, so this is the date that I will have to pay. So how will I know the due date? So here if you see, I have this manage installments. So probably I'll fill in the line and the distribution details also, and then I'll come back to the screen. So wherein we can see the due date. But the due date is something that when I want to pay to this particular invoice. So this is based on the payment terms. Okay. So now if I say show more, so I will have more information that I can capture here. So for instance, if you see, so the accounting date. So when we talk about date, it is the invoice date and the accounting date. So invoice date is actually when vendor has created this invoice and sent us the copy. So that is the date. Basically, system will calculate the due dates. So when I want to pay this invoice. So this accounting date is nothing but when I want to book in my books. Okay, so that's about the accounting date. Okay, so when we did this configuration, so we saw the liability distribution that will be populated from the common options. So that is where basically this account code combination has populated automatically. Okay, so if I want to enable the document sequence, I can enable. So now the reason to enable this document sequence are the voucher number. So here, if you see this invoice number is manual. So I might probably say 78 UT slash 01, and next invoice I will not use the same sequence, or I will have gap between the invoices. But now in terms of auditing, if I want to understand whether there is a gap or there is an invoice that is left out. So to understand that, so we have this option wherein if one invoice is generated with number, let's say 1001, so the next invoice that system will generate would be 1002. So this is for the purpose of auditing. So we have this option. Okay. And then the line information. So I'll just come down. Okay, so the amount that we have given is 10,000. Okay, and then we have the distribution set that we can make use of it. Okay, so either we can say this is distribution set, or I can say I can enter the distributions manually. So now if I select this distribution set, this expense account will be created, or this expense account is populated automatically. So to see that, I can go to distributions. Okay, so these are the accounts that we have taken. So now, if you see, so I have this account that is 63180. All these are the same accounts, but if you notice, I have multiple lines. The reason being, so I wanted to basically distribute my cost center. Okay, so here if you see, so the cost center for this is 466. And if I take this one, so the cost center is 464. Okay, so based on that, you can define. So this has been segregated based on the distribution set that I have selected. Okay, so this account will be generated automatically. So now, apart from this, so what are the other information that you can capture is that? So one is that project information. So if you have the project details that you can capture, okay, and also you can track this as asset. So this we will see when we see the fixed asset module. So wherein we will create this invoice, and using this invoice, basically we will import this transaction into fixed asset module, and we will create this as a new asset addition. Okay. So we have that process as well. So we will see that. But this information, so we can see. So now if you see, so there are limited fields that I can see. But let's say, so here I have related to the fixed asset module, so I have only this option. But whereas I will also need the asset book and the asset category also. So if something is not visible, so I can go here, that is view, and I can say column. And here if you see, so for each of the details, so for example, if you take the project, so for project, of course, I have enabled all the fields, but let's say asset. So asset, if you see, so these are the fields that is not enabled. So now if I want to enable, let's say, asset category, so I can simply click that, so which will allow me to add or provide the asset category as well. Okay, so similarly, I can see those details. So above whatever you are seeing here are basically the hyperlink. So if I want to go to the asset options or the asset related fields, so I can simply say asset, so which will take me to this one. Okay, so this is kind of a categorization that you can see in lines. Okay, so these are the options that you have. So now, as a process, the way that this invoice or these invoices will be processed is that, so first thing is that system will validate. So validate meaning whatever the information that we have entered, all those informations are correct. So this is the first thing that system will validate. Okay, so the second thing is that if I have the approval process that is enabled, so I will have to do the approval. Okay, and third thing is that accounting. So now I have created this transaction, but anyway, I will have to transfer this information to the general ledger module, because that is where I'm basically drawing my financial statements. Okay, so that's the reason we will do the accounting process as well. So this is the simple process we have if I want to basically process non PO invoices. Okay, so first thing is that providing the header information, and second thing is to give the lines. So lines, if you see, so I have given this as distribution set advertising. So this account code combination system has picked automatically. So these are the mandatory informations that I will have to input. So now we have given all these informations. Okay, so I can save this and I can go to validate. I can go to this option, invoice actions. So here, if you see, so you will have a lot of informations. So first thing is that manage installments. So I'll just go to this. So manage installments is a page where I can see when this particular invoice will get due. Okay, so here if you see, so I can say, so this invoice will be due on 27th January. So that is today, because the payment term that I have given is immediate. Okay, and then the mode of payment. So method, so I have given here. Okay, so this bank account, it is from the supplier. So we saw when we are creating the supplier, so how to attach the bank account details. So that is where this particular bank account is being pulled up. Okay, so now since this is the electronic mode of payment, so I wanted to basically capture the bank account details also. So let's say I'm processing this as a check, so for which I do not need this bank account. So for that, I will uh, for that I'll not basically give the bank account, or if I have given, so since I'm overriding the payment method, so I will have to remove this bank account and process the payment. Okay, so this is high level information that you will see. And here if you want to split the installment, let's say I don't want to pay on 27th as a 10,000, so I want to pay 5,000 as one installment, and in the second installment, so I can do this. This is basically the splitting process that we have. But if I want to basically split this into two, so I can do this using this option, split installments. Okay, and here if you see, so this is to place the holds. So let's say I don't want this invoice to be processed for any reason. So I have created the invoice, but then this supplier is kind of an what do you call supplied the item which is not up to the mark, or which has not crossed the quality check. Okay, so now I don't want to release the payment to this particular supplier. So what I can do is that, so I can simply place the hold, so which will basically apply the hold. So whatever the invoices those are in hold will not be processed by the payment team or the treasury team. Okay, so unless I release this hold, so I'll not be able to process the payment. So I'll just release the hold and I'll say save and close. Okay, so before that, another point here is that the pay group. So pay group is nothing but the categorization. So what do we exactly mean by pay group? So for example, let's say I have my internet bills, I have my electricity charges, I have my raw material vendor bill payment, and then I have my stationery purchases. So each one of it, I can have this as an pay group. Okay, so where I'll have this as an beneficial is that, so there will be certain cases that there will be lot of invoices. So let's say there are 1,000 invoices. So out of 1,000 invoices, so probably I wanted to let's say I wanted to hold 800 invoices. I wanted to process only 200 invoices. So in that case, what I can do is that, so I can process this using the pay group. So if the pay group is 1, 2, 3, so I wanted to process only the pay group 1. So 2 and 3 I want to hold. So I can give as an criteria to filter the invoices. So using this pay group. Okay, so this will be used in terms of processing the payment. Okay, so for now I'm using the standard. Okay, yeah, so that's all we have it in the invoice screen. So I'll just go to this one. So now if you see, so the calculate tax is nothing but to calculate the tax. Okay, so this is the option that I was saying. So that is validate the invoice. Okay, so the remaining ones I will come back. So I'll say validate. So now this will go to needs revalidation because the amount I have not changed it. Okay, so what are the scenarios that basically system will go to needs revalidation? So if there is any force that is applied by the system. So now if I click this needs validation, so which is on hyperlink, so this will open and this will say the reason. So here if you see, so there is a system hold. So if I open this hold, so it says that it is held by system, which means this is a system hold and total invoice line does not match with the distribution. Okay, so that's the reason. So now if I try to release it manually saying this is validated, basically system will not allow us to do it, because as I said, if it is manual hold that I'm applying to the invoice, I can release it, but this is system hold. Okay, so what I have to do is that, so I will have to basically make the changes to this invoice. Okay, so what I'll do is that, so I'll just change the amount. So to put it in a simpler term, so this invoice header is nothing but the total amount that we are going to pay to the vendor. Okay, so now this might have the tax addition. Okay, so which you will see here. So this is the base amount, and whatever the tax that we are calculating, it is here that we will see. Okay, so I'll just expand this. Okay, so here if you see, so these are the taxes that system has generated, that is for county, state and city. Okay, so now I'll just go back to the screen and validate this invoice. I'll say validate. Okay, so now if you see, the status of the invoice has changed to validate. So now I'll just say this is post to ledger. So now post to ledger is a process that I am trying to transfer this particular transaction to general ledger module and post this in the ledger. So once this is posted, so that is when this particular transaction or this amount, invoice amount is being considered in the trial balance or the GL balances. Okay, so I'll say post to ledger. Okay, maybe I think the system is a bit slow. Time limit. Okay, maybe let me try to post it again. Okay, I think the instance is a bit slow. Okay, so but the option is this. So if we say post to ledger, so since this is loading for longer time, so it is ending in warning or this thing error. Okay, so I'll just try to do it one more time if this works. Okay, so meanwhile, I'll just explain the other options that we have here. Okay, so now here, if you see, so whatever I have highlighted, so there are two things. So one is that deleting the invoice, and the other thing is canceling the invoice. So now, if I want to delete this invoice, so there are certain scenarios where I can delete, and there are certain scenario that I cannot delete this invoice. So if I cannot delete this invoice, so of course I'll have to cancel this invoice. If at all I want to reverse this transaction, whatever that I have created in the system. Okay. So now what are the scenarios that I can delete this invoice? So if I have created this invoice and I have not validated the invoice, I have just saved this. Okay. So the yeah, it is heavy utilization. Some performance issue is causing this accounting issue. Okay. Okay, so I'll just explain the accounting process because the option is this. If you go to invoice actions, so you can see this post to ledger. Okay, so this is the option. So I'll explain these two things. Okay, so the delete invoice is before generating the voucher number. So if you remember, so I've shown this option wherein we saw the document sequence number or the voucher number. So if the voucher number is not generated and the invoice is not validated, I can delete this invoice. So which will not be stored in my database at all. So this is one such option. So now let's say I have imported it. So I have enabled this document sequencing, automatic sequence numbering. So now system has automatically generated the sequence, but I did not even validate this invoice. So since this document sequence number has already generated, so I will not be able to delete this invoice. So in that case, I will have to cancel this invoice. So if I cancel this invoice, so this invoice amount becomes zero and the line distribution, everything. So which means that this particular amount will be reversed. So in my trial balance or in my books, I'll see this on debit side 10950 and on the credit side 10950. So which will knock off and the invoice will be reversed or this invoice will be in cancelled status. Okay. So this is one thing, and then this is where basically we'll apply the hold. So now if I want to add hold, so simply I can just say add and I can apply hold. Okay, so when I want to release the hold, so I can release it. So what would be the scenario that I'll apply the hold? So it is similar to what we have seen earlier. So that is if I don't want to process this payment right now, because I wanted to basically verify the documents or the attachment that is given by the user department. Okay. So now until I verify all these details, so I'll have the status as validated, but I don't want this invoice to be processed. So I'll just place this particular invoice on hold. So now once this details are received, so what I'll do is that I'll release the hold. So once the hold is released, so that is when I'll see the status as validated. So if there is any hold, so the status that you will see is needs revalidation. So whatever the invoices that we are seeing as needs revalidation, so those invoices will not be picked up in the payment batch. Okay. So there is a process that we can run to pick these invoices and process the payment. So that particular process will not pick this invoice if the invoice status is in needs revalidation. Okay. So that is this option of hold. Okay. And this is nothing but to apply or adjust the prepayment. So this we will see next. So how to create the prepayment and how to apply this prepayment. How to apply this invoice to the prepayment. Okay. And this account coding we have seen already. So this is nothing but if I want to basically create the account combination by some other user. So I don't want this user, whoever is creating the invoice, because this might be a person from the production department, so who does not know which account to provide. So I wanted to initiate this. So this is kind of an approval. So once this is sent to the required person, that is the accountant, so accountant will review and add the account. So once that is done, so then I will have the status as the
Arun,
distribution or the account code combinations are entered. Okay. And then I can go ahead with the regular process, that is validating the invoice and posting the accounting entries. Okay.
Arun, I have a question here.
Yeah,
In the account code, right? If I have a
correct.
bulk of invoices for the supervisor or the accountant to review, is there any program that they can submit it, or they have to come and do it individual at each invoice level?
No, here only. I don't think there is program for this, because for
Mm-hmm.
approval we have this, but for account coding, I don't think we have option. So it is the
So
screen
it
that
has
I'll
to be
have to
done
see.
at each
Yeah,
invoice level.
correct,
Every single invoices they have to come and verify and then initiate
correct,
it. Oh,
correct.
okay, got it. Okay. No profile option, nothing that can be no privilege, nothing. It is
Yeah,
all
yeah,
okay.
it is standard one. Yeah. So these are basically controlled at the role level. So if I don't want user to use this option, so I'll have to disable or I'll have to remove this privilege to the particular user. Okay. Yeah.
So
And
can the
uh,
accountant go add the account coding at time of approval? The approval will not be initiated once the account code combination is not there, right? Or if there is a default code combination, because sometimes the back office people they might enter the invoices, right?
correct.
So the default account distribution account would get generated. So is there a way that in approval at the first level of approval or accountant they can go change the account code combination and then send it for second level of approval, or we cannot do that?
Uh,
I can only reject it.
yeah. So this
They
you are
cannot
asking
modify.
at the account coding or the normal invoice processing?
No, just if I have to bypass this, right, account coding, but I
Okay.
still want the accountant or supervisor, go change
Okay.
the account code combination if it needed. In such
Okay.
scenario, I can eliminate this privilege from the data entry
Yeah.
person who
Yeah.
enters the invoices. And then
Yeah.
during the approval process, you might have
Yeah.
level one, level two of approvals, right? So in
Yeah. Yeah.
any level, can they go ahead and change the distribution, the account code combination, and then
Yeah,
still
they can
continue with
change.
the accrual?
Yeah, they can change it. So there are two ways. So one is that distribution set, if we have created it, and if we have given this kind of a master in an Excel sheet, so this particular user, the back office users, so who's creating this invoice, so who can select this distribution set. So this is one option. And second option is that so they can give. So this is not suggested, but in that case we'll have to give, because unless I give the expense code combination, so system will not allow me to initiate the approval. Okay, so I'll have to give some accounts, the default accounts, and send it for the approval, and then the respective manager or the accountant, whoever wants to enter the account, so they can enter those details.
Okay, they can override the distribution account,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The approval
Yes,
level. Okay,
yes.
so that is it's a default functionality, or should I? It is also comes in the in the BPM. They will have to do it, give that privilege, or it's like a privilege that comes in here, the security or something.
No, this is standard one because this
Standard
comes
one.
as part yeah, this comes as part of this accounts payable invoice supervisor role. So
Mm-hmm,
this
mm-hmm.
comes as part of that standard
Okay,
one.
okay, got it. Okay, and even if I don't wanted to make any change, that can also be done at the BPM, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Then the invoice approval. So invoice approval is the same thing what we have seen. So we have certain configurations for this. So which we will see after this, because invoice processing is first thing. So for that reason, I did not enable this approval for this particular business unit, that is US1 business unit. Okay. So I'll enable this approval and we'll see how to configure the system. Okay, what are the options we have. But in terms of initiating the approval, so when I'm initiating for the first time for this particular invoice, So I'll have to go here, that is approval, and say initiate. So this will send a notification to the approver. So when we see notification, it is two notifications that will be received by the approver. So one is the email notification and the other one is in-app notification. It is something like this. So here I do not have approval request. So this is kind of an FYI. But if I'm a manager, so who will have access or who will receive the approval request, so I'll see this information here to approve or reject. So which I'll show as a next one. Okay. And here if you see, so I have also option to withdraw. So withdraw is nothing but I have sent it for the approval, but I probably want to make some changes, so I don't want to do it. So I'll say withdraw. Okay, and holding this particular approval process. Okay, and then force approve usually will not give, but there if there is any option, so force approval meaning manually approving this particular invoice and processing the invoice. Okay, so that's about the force approval. And if I have initiated for the approval and the invoice is rejected, okay, and now I have made the recommended changes or amended this invoice and I want to submit this particular invoice again for the approval, so I'll have to say resubmit. Okay, so approve and reject is something that if this particular invoice is created by someone else and I am the approver, so I have access to approve or reject. So that is when I can use these two options. So else I can use only these options. Okay. And if I want to see the approval notification history to whom this particular invoice is assigned, so all those things I can see from here. Okay. And finally, the pay in full. So for payment, we have specifically a separate screen wherein I can process this as a batch or I can process this as a single payment. Okay, so there are two options. So this is kind of a scenario if this particular person who is creating this invoice, so this understanding is that so a person from the treasury department is basically creating the invoice and also processing the payments. So these are the scenarios for you can say petty cash or the interest cash. Okay, so wherein this particular person, so let's say I am giving this as a donation to probably the political parties. Okay, so now I cannot raise this invoice by the invoice department or the accounts department and then come back to the treasury department because this donation and these things are basically given by the treasury department, but wherein the invoice cannot be created by the accounts team. Okay, so now unless I have invoice in place, I will not be able to pay the invoice because if you see the receivables, so I can directly create the receipts, so which we call it as miscellaneous receipt. But here, unless I have invoice in place, I cannot make the payment. So for this reason, so even if it is a donation, so I will have to create one invoice, okay, and I'll have to make the payment. So now in this case, I will have to say this is pay in full. Okay, so this is scenario where I am creating the invoice and also I'm paying the invoice. Okay, so that's the option. Yeah, so now this invoice is created. So this is standard one that we are looking at. So that is without purchase order. Okay. So next what we have is that the prepayment. So as a sequence, so how I have is that, so first thing is that without purchase order. So when we say without purchase order, it is for the standard invoice, prepayment, credit memo or debit memo. So credit memo or debit memo, so both are in negative. So I'll use in this case the credit memo. Okay. So I'll show where we can create this credit memo. Okay. So when we are processing the bill, so how this will reflect there. Okay. So these things we'll see. So once we complete these processes, then I'll demonstrate the P2P process flow. So then we will have the purchase order here. Okay. So for this, I'll show three-way matching. Okay. So using that, basically, we'll I'll show the P2P flow there. Okay. So now we have seen the standard invoice. So the next one that I'll create is the prepayment. Okay. So for this same vendor, I'll create so that I don't want to create the invoice again because the invoice is created already. So I will just create the prepayment and I'll apply to that particular invoice. Okay. So first thing is that I'll have to change this type to prepayment. So prepayment is nothing but advance. So meaning I'm giving this amount. Let's say I'm giving 50,000 as an advance. $50,000 is the advance that I'm giving to this vendor, advance crop. Okay. So now if I have future bills that I have created, so that I will use it to knock off or adjust against this prepayment. Okay. So prepayment again, this is a manual number that I'll have to give because this screen, if you see, so this is common screen. I can create prepayment, credit promo, all those transactions. So here specific to the transaction, I will not be able to generate the invoice number. So I'll have to maintain a sequence wherein I will say this is my prepayment number. Okay, so I'm saying the prepayment amount is 50,000. Okay, so other informations are same, so whatever we have seen, so it is the same thing. So only difference is that, so here I don't need to give the distribution, so system automatically creates the distribution. So this again comes from the common options. Okay, so the sequence is something like this. So if the account is given at supplier side, so then the information is picked up from there. If it is not there, so then it picks from the common options. Okay. So this amount is again has to be matched with the header. So this is similar to the invoice processing. Okay. So I don't want to give more information. So I'll just say save and validate this invoice. Okay. So I'll just add this amount. The tax amount needs to be added. So I'll just validate this invoice. Sorry. Okay. So now if you see, so the standard invoice status, if you remember what I shown is that validated. So once you validate, so the status will get changed to validated. But here if you see, so the status is unpaid. The reason being, so if it is an advance, which means that I will give the amount on that particular date. So if this invoice or this advance is created on 27th of January, so which means that the payment also will happen on the same date. So that's the reason if you see the status is unpaid. So now I I can go to the payment screen and create it, or I can simply use this option, that is pay in full. So here I don't have to fill in more information. So I can just fill in my bank account and I can use the payment process profile. Okay, I think okay, let me use this one for now. Okay, so I'll just say submit. So once the payment is done, so payment part we'll see after we complete the invoice processing. So when we say invoice processing, it is the P2P I mean P2P flow, and then the invoicing we have seen it without purchase order, and then we have the credit memo and all those things. So after this, so we'll see the payment part also. So for payment, the configurations we are yet to see. So we'll see the setups and then we'll see how to process single payment and also how to process the batch payment. Okay. So now once the payment is created, so this is the payment reference number that we have. Okay. And then here if you see the status is available. So which means that this particular prepayment that we have created is available for the invoice application. Okay. So as I said, this is the supplier that I have used to create the standard invoice, and the amount is 10,000 there I have given. So here I have given this as 54,000 to apply that particular invoice to this prepayment. Okay, so now what I will do is that I'll open that particular invoice so which we created. Okay, so I'll just open this invoice. I think the date is today. Yeah, this is the one 78UT/01. Okay, so I'll just say edit, and here if you see, so this is the option, that is apply or unapply prepayment. Okay, so I'll just say apply. So this will show the available prepayment. So for this particular supplier, so I have only one prepayment that is available. So if I have more than one, so I'll have multiple lines here. Okay, so now if I don't want to apply, let's say 10,000 fully, so instead I wanted to apply only 5,000, so I can edit here. So I can simply say it is only the 5,000 that I want to apply. Okay, but in this case I don't want to do the partial application, so I want to apply the entire amount. Okay, so I'll just say apply. So here if you see, it is the option. So also you have option to unapply. So unapply is a scenario that I don't want to apply this invoice. So probably instead of adjusting against the advance that I have given, so I might want to make it as a payment. Okay. So I can do unapply and I can do the regular payment. So regular payment is what we have seen just now. Okay. So that we can do it. So now once we have applied this invoice, so you can see the available balance against this particular prepayment, that is 40,000, because the amount that we had is 50,000, and after this deduction it is the 40,000 is the limit that we have. Okay, so now the status will change to needs revalidation. So I will have to validate this invoice. Okay, so now if you see, so I'll just come back. Okay, so if you refer to the payment, so this is the place where I can track all those payments. Okay, so if you see payment, so I did not create any payment, so the payment is null, which means there is no payment, but I have applied this prepayment. Okay, so it is the this is the prepayment number. So this is again kind of an information wherein I can see the available prepayments against this. So after this particular application. Okay, so these are the available one. So with that I have applied 10,000. Okay. Okay, so that is about the prepayment. Any question or we can move on? Okay. Okay, so the next one that I have is that the credit memo. Okay, so now credit memo is a scenario that if I have a liability meaning that I have purchased the item worth of $10,000. Okay, so now I will have to make this $10,000 to the vendor. So now I am seeing some items as an defective. So I don't want to pay the entire 10,000, but instead I wanted to basically detect this defective product, which I will place it as a return or something like that. Okay. So now there are two transactions. So here if you see, so as I said, so both the debit memo and credit memo is in negative in terms of payable. So in receivable, it is different. So I'll talk about that when we see the receivable transactions. But now if you see in payables, it is the same. That is, if you create the debit memo or if you create the credit memo, so both are in negative. So that's the reason I have taken credit memo. Okay. So now the difference is that so whether the customer is raising this or it is raised by the supplier. So if it is raised by the supplier, it is credit memo. If it is by the customer, then it is debit memo. So in this case, I'm selecting this as credit memo. Okay. So this is basically to reduce the payable amount. So that is from 10,000, I probably want to pay only the 9,000. So in order to system to understand that I want to pay only 9,000, so I'll have to create this credit memo. So now when I'm making the payment, so I'll select two transactions. So one is invoice with 10,000 and the credit memo with minus 1,000. So the net would be the 9,000 is the amount that I'll be paying to the supplier. Okay. So similarly, I'll take the same supplier, that is Advanced Corp. So let me say this is for 1,000. Okay. So that is the same amount that I'm giving here as well. Okay. Okay, so I'll just say save and validate this invoice. So the other process are same. So it is I'll have to just validate the invoice and do the remaining process. So there is no change in that. Okay. So I'll just validate this invoice. Okay, so now the invoice is validated, so you can account this transaction. Okay. So in terms of accounting, so it is the standard one. So debit your expense and credit your liability. So liability is created to identify that this is the amount that I want to pay to this particular vendor, or this is my total payable amount for this particular period. Okay, so that is the reason we have this option. Okay, so that's the accounting entry. So now let's say I am trying to attach this particular credit memo to the invoice. Okay, so what I will do is, so here if you see, so match invoice line is for the purchase order, so which we'll talk about it after this. Okay, so before that, so we have something called correct matched invoices and correct unmatched invoices. So matched invoice is something with purchase order and unmatched invoice is something without purchase order. Okay. So this we have done it, but if I want to probably match it, so what I will do is that, so I will search with the invoice number. Okay. So I will have to select the invoice to which I wanted to basically knock off this. So our invoice number is I think 78. So let me give this as starts with and 78. Yeah. So this is the one. So now if I say correct and apply, so this amount will act as a correction. Okay. So that is the thing. Okay. So now, so these are the transactions without the purchase order. So the next thing that I'll explain is with purchase order. Okay, the flow of transaction will be something like this. So I will have my purchase order created, and then the goods will be received in my inventory or the location to where I want to deliver this item. So when this item is delivered, then I'll have to create the receipt. Okay. And once it is receipt, so then I'll have to create the payable invoice and then I'll have to make the payment. Okay. So to create this, so I'll just go back to the procurement module. Okay. Yeah, it is here. Okay. So if I say purchase orders, so purchase order is basically, so this is basically the supply chain part, but if I want to understand the flow, So we will need to understand how this purchase order and how this receipt transaction is created as well. Okay. So, so here there are two ways that I can create this purchase order. So one is that I can create the requisition, and then I can using the requisition I can create the purchase order. Okay, so that is again the similar process. So I'm just avoiding that because there, if you see, so I also have the sourcing this thing. So to avoid that, I'm using this option. Okay, so I'll say create order. So create order meaning creating the purchase order. Okay. So I'll use the same supplier, that is advanced car. Okay. And here if you see, so by default the buyer is populated. So this is the user login that I have used. Okay. So for this we have certain configuration that needs to be done in the procurement. So that is to create this particular user as a buyer and all those things. So if the relevant options are given or the privileges are given, so you can create the purchase order. Okay. So now similar to the invoice, so we'll have to keep the BU, the business unit, and the supplier. Okay. And then you can say create. So this will open a screen wherein the header informations will be populated automatically. So we will have to just give the line and the schedules. Okay. So again here if you see, so we have the distribution combinations that needs to be created. Okay. So when we say distribution combination, so we have two accounts here. So one is the charge account and the accrual account. So now, so when I will have accrual is that, so when I'll have the accrual created is that, so when we receive the item, so the accrual is created. So I'll just open an Excel file. Okay. So first I'll just explain the flow. So that is purchase order. Okay. And then the receipt. Okay. And then the delivery. Okay. And then the invoice, then payment, then reconciliation. So these are the flow of transaction. Okay. So for purchase order, so we do not have any accounting. Okay. So system will not generate any accounting entry basically here. Okay. So now when I receive the item in my inventory, or probably the item has arrived at my gate, so I will have to create the receipt. Okay. So now when I create this receipt entry, so there is another module called costing. So wherein this particular transaction will be accounted there. So now the accounting entry for this receipt application would be your receiving account on the debit side. Okay. And then the accrual account on the credit side, so RAP accrual. Okay. And then when I deliver this particular item, that is I have probably the quality check or the inspection. So once this inspection is done, so I'll have to deliver this particular item. Okay. So here the accounting entry would be something like this. So if it is material, that is raw material, I'll have the material account. Or if this is let's say this is probably the asset purchase, so then I will have the asset clearing account here. Okay. Or if it is an expense, so I'll have the expense account here. Okay. So this is how basically the entry will flow. So now debit side I'll have the material account, and on the credit side, so I'll have my receiving account. So then when I create this particular invoice, so I will have the AP accrual account on the debit, and liability on the credit. So similarly, when I create the payment, so I will have my liability account on the debit, and this accounting entry. Okay. So cash clearing on the debit, and cash account. So now if you see from here, so I'm receiving the item. So I am saying receiving on the debit. So here if you see these accounts, that is the accrual, receiving, and the liability and the cash clearing. All these are contra account, are the temporary accounts, which means so until this particular transaction is performed, so this will stay. So this is just to track if this particular activity is completed, because here if you see, so I have received the item. So if I have received the item, then I will have to basically inform to the system that the accrual is created. So unless you invoice it, so I'll not be able to generate the liability. So to track this particular activity, that is, we have received the receipt, and I wanted to basically make sure that invoice is also done. So what I will do is that, so I'll say this is AP accrual account. So when this AP accrual account will be knocked off, so when I create the invoice, okay. So meaning I have received the item. So I wanted to make sure this invoice is created, because that is when I will understand that this is liable to pay to this particular vendor. Okay. So now when I'm creating the payment, again this liability account will be knocked off and cash clearing. So this is again a contra account or the temporary account. So this is created to make sure that whatever the payment that we have initiated, it has been cleared by the bank. So usually it is the separate cash account and the cash clearing account that we have. Okay, so to identify or to track the account balances and all those things. Okay. So now when we get the bank statement and do the reconciliation, so this cash clearing is knocked off. So here, if you remove these contra account or the temporary accounts, so the net accounting entry would be your material account debit and your cash account credit. So this accounting nature, of course, we know. So whatever the expense that you are booking, so that would be your debit item. Okay. So the cash is going out. So you will have this on your credit side. Okay. So this would be the nature of accounting. So now when I create this purchase order, so I'll have two accounts. So one is this AP accrual account, and the material account or the charge account. So charge account is meaning, so what is the actual expense that I'm going to incur? So if it is expense, so the charge account is nothing but the expense account. Or if it is, let's say, asset purchase, so the charge account is nothing but the asset account, that asset clearing account that I will have it here. Because as asset cost account, I will not directly hit here, because if I import this particular invoice into fixed asset module, so that is when this asset clearing account will be knocked off, and the cost account will be generated by the system. Okay, so for that reason, so we'll have only the asset clearing account, but not the asset cost account. Okay, so this is how basically the flow of transaction will go. So now these two accounts are being populated, okay, in the purchase order screen. So how we are populating this? So we have a configuration called transaction account builder. So this is kind of what do you call the this is kind of an supply chain component, but in order to understand this accounting, so we are looking at something similar to the subledger accounting, but not extensively. So there are three components that we have. Okay, so one is this mapping set, so which we have already seen. So this is to generate the account for the manual invoices. So that's the same options that we have. Okay, and then the account rule. Okay, and then we are attaching this to the ledger. So now here what I'm doing is that, so I'm writing in condition. So let's say if this is my inventory category, okay, so then I wanted to generate, let's say, this account combination. Okay, 4589.00. So this is the account code combination. So if this is the value that is being derived here in the purchase order screen, then this is the output or this is the account that I wanted to generate. Okay, so now we have given the condition, so now I will have to attach this condition to the account. So I'll have to take this mapping set. So as I said earlier, so we have the mapping set, we have constant and the other options as well. So since we have selected this as mapping set, okay, so let's say we have created this as P. So this is the mapping set that we have created. Okay, so now, so this account role, I'll have to attach it to the ledger. So based on this, we will have the accounts generated. Okay, so now I'll show how we are creating this purchase order. Okay, so the header level information we have entered it. Okay, so then the line level information. Okay, so here if I have the item with me, I can do it. So I do not have items with me. So I'll just give the description and I'll process this purchase order. Okay, so this is the category that I'm using, and here if you see, so the quantity that I want to use. Okay, so let me give this as, let's say, $3,000 is the amount that we are giving. Okay, so this is the line information that we have given. So the next one is the schedule. So schedule is the place where we say whether this is two-way matching or three-way matching. Okay, so now what is this two-way or what is this three-way is that? Okay, so let's say,
I
yeah,
connection lost. Yeah, tell
uh,
me, Arun, you said something.
yeah, I mean, I was saying, I mean, you lost somewhere long or just you lost me?
Just now, just now
Okay,
only when I was talking, it went. Oh,
okay, okay.
yeah, tell me, please.
Yeah, so I was saying, so this is the, yeah, probably I believe this you got it, even the tab and these things you might have got it. So probably you missed me in the procurement screen. Okay. So now the header information we have filled in. Okay. And then what I created is that the line information. So the line information, if you see, so I do not have item with me. So I'm saying this is the description and the category that I'm giving it as miscellaneous. And I'm saying the PO price is 3000. Okay. So this is my line information. Fine. And then if I go to
Me?
schedules, this is where basically I'm saying whether this is two-way matching or this is three-way matching. Okay. So now what are the options that we have? So one is that two-way, and then we have three-way, and then we have four-way. Okay. So two-way is a process where we match invoice and purchase order. Okay, so let's say I have ordered for 10 quantities. Okay, so now when I'm creating this invoice, so if I book it as 11 quantities, so then system will say that this is an overbill. So of course that is just a warning sign that system will give. So if I want to proceed with billing, so I can do that, but system will basically validate, which means that system will validate between these two documents. So if I select two-way matching, okay, and then three-way matching is nothing but matching with invoice PO and addition to this. So this will be matched to the receipt transaction also. Okay. and then we have something called four-way matching. Four-way matching is something that I will need this inspection also. So inspection meaning the quality check. So let's say I have ordered for probably the charger. Okay, so now there is a separate team where they will check or they will validate if this charger is working fine or there is no issue. So of course we'll have the warranty and the other details, but still this team will check and give us the report. Okay, so based on this we are basically creating the invoice. So unless we get these documents or we have these documents in place, so we will not process invoice. So that is about four-way matching. Okay, so these are the different ways that we can do it. So now where we have this option is that, so in schedules, if I say edit, so if you click this pencil icon, so we have this option to select if it is two-way matching or this is three-way matching. Okay, so let me say this is three-way matching. Okay, and here if you see, so you have different things. So as I said, so it is direct meaning, so I'm just creating the receipt. So inspection meaning I will refer with four-way documents, meaning I will need this inspection document also in place. And standard is nothing but I will basically create the receipt and also I will create the delivery. Okay, so I'll just change this to three-way. Okay, so the charge account that I can give, so let me give the charge account as, so if it is inventory, so based on the configurations that we have given, so as I said, the item category is the rule that we have given. So since I do not have the item in place, so I'll have to input as an manual. Okay, so I'll just pick this as an expense. Okay, the software expense is what I'm taking, and I'll say okay. Okay, so I'll just say okay. So the reason being, so basically how this two-way is picked up is basically based on the line type that we have selected. So now for this goods, so I have given this. So there are two places that this will pick. So one is the receiving parameter. So these are completely tech, I mean the SEM related setups, but as in this thing to understand, I'm just saying, okay. So that is where this is being picked up. So now I have set up a rule saying if this is created by buyer Shiva, so this needs to be approved automatically. So this is the rule that I have given. Okay, so now this particular purchase order will be approved automatically. Okay, so I'll just copy the purchase order number. Okay, so here the first transaction is done. So that is we have created the purchase order. Okay, so now the second transaction is creating the receipt. Okay, okay, yeah. So the purchase order is created. So this might take some time to get it approved because the one that enabled is auto approval. Okay, so I'll just check if this is approved. Usually it will take around 10 to 20 seconds to get it approved. Yeah, so this is in pending for approval. Okay, so now if you want to track or if you want to understand the approval process, so you have a place where you can see this. So if you go to tools and if you go to transaction console, I think, yeah, it is here. So the transaction console,
It's ended.
yeah.
Okay. Yes, Arun, please continue.
Okay, yeah. So transaction console is a screen where basically you will track if this particular purchase order is failed. It is not only for the purchase order. So this is common screen wherein you can track for your invoices, you can track for your journal entries, you can track for this thing, except your payments. So whatever the approvals that you have, so this is one screen wherein you can track all those transactions. Okay. So only for the payment. So unless you have this SQL query, so which is given by Oracle. So unless you have that query and you have this access to report and analytics, so you'll not be able to understand the status of the approval. So of course, based on the rules, it will be approved, but in case if you want to check it. Okay, so apart from that, whatever transaction that you want to check, so this is the screen that you can see. Okay. So let me go back to the purchasing screen, I mean the purchase order screen, and let me check if this purchase order is approved. So if it is approved, so we can start receiving the item. So that is creating the receipt. Okay, so still this is in pending for approval. Yeah. So this purchase order is approved. So once it is approved, so we'll see the status as open. Okay. Now the first step is completed. So I'll go to this screen, that is to receive the items. Okay. So for this, I will have to go to this option called supply chain execution. Okay. So that is inventory management. So under this, I'll have to receive the expected shipments. Okay. So this is the purchase order number, and I'll just say search. Okay. So this is the details that we have given. So if you remember, so draft purchase is the description that we have given. Okay. So this is kind of an hyperlink. So you can click this to review the purchase order details. Okay. So I'll say show receipt quantity. So which will give me the quantity. So quantity, of course, what we have entered is one. Okay. So now if you see the destination type, so destination type can be receiving or expense. Okay, so since I do not want to attach the sub inventory and these things, so I'm saying this is quantity. Okay, so I have received the item. Yeah. So the receipt is created, and the next step is to do the delivery. So for delivery, I will need this costing and the other things also in place, because there is separate process called put away. So put away is nothing but what do you call, the creating the receipts and then delivering the item in the inventory. Okay. So for this, I do not have this thing, but theoretically, so so it's the same screen that will have to come here. Okay, or else I'll do one thing. So I'll just attach this role and let's see if this appears. So add role, and here it is Entry manager and warehouse manager. Okay, so let me give access to 001 inventory organization. Okay, so this is the user that we have logged in, and the role that we have given is this. So these are the two ones. So we'll just say this is the unit. Yeah, this is the one. So we have given the access also. So I'll just run this program to synchronize. So this is not mandatory, but if at all we are not getting this access that we have given, okay, so then we will have to run this program, because once that program is completed, so the role synchronization will be done, and whatever the access or the privilege that we have granted, so that will be visible in the screen. Okay, so I'll just log in once. So let me go to supply chain execution. I think this will take some time to refresh. Yeah, so now we can see. So this is put away transaction. Okay, so let me take the purchase order. So this is the purchase order transaction. Okay, so I'll just say put away and I'll submit this. Okay, so now the delivery is also created. Okay, so the next process is to match with the invoice. So I'll just say done and go to the screen, that is procurement. Sorry, not procurement. So procurement part we have completed it. So I'll have to go to the payables invoice, and it is the standard invoice that we'll have to match. Okay. So first thing is that I'll say this is my PO. So based on the purchase order, so I'll have business unit, supplier, supplier side, all those information. So now if you see, so you have something called bill icon. So this says that if there is open prepayment. So this is kind of an indication that to say that you have open prepayment, so probably you can do this prepayment application instead of making the payment. Okay. So I'll so so I'm using this PO number as the invoice number. Okay. So I'll just say this is 10,000. And now here, if you see match invoice line. So I'll not enter the invoice line details manually. So and the distribution and the amount on all those things. So instead I'll say match invoice lines, and I'll click this right arrow. So this button. Okay. And select this line. Okay. So this is nothing but the self billing. So that I have enabled, so that we can ignore. Okay, so now, so we have created this for 3000 with one quantity. Okay, so these are the details that we can see. So this is the ordered item, and what I have, so the received is, if you see, so it is the one item that has been received. Okay, and then the billed is nothing but the invoiced. Okay, so I did not invoice it, so I'm seeing this as, so let's say this purchase order I'm having as an probably, let's say 20 quantities. So I have received 10 and I have billed for 5. So then I'll see 5. So in this case I do not have as such billed item, so that's why I'm seeing this. Okay, so I'll just say okay. So now this particular purchase order or this particular receipt is matched with the invoice. So if you see here, so I don't need to enter the distribution, I don't need to enter the amount or anything. So all those informations are copied from the purchase order. If you remember, so this is the one that we gave it for the item description, because we did not have the item, so we just gave this is the description. Okay. So the other process remains same. So it is just matching the receipt or the purchase order with the invoice. Okay. So this is the document that I have. So basically in this case, as I said, so it is the three-way matching. Okay, so it is just an warning message system gives. Okay, so that can be avoided. So in this case, so this is the option that we have given. So system will validate the invoice, purchase order, and receipt. So we did not change any information. So we ordered for one quantity for 3000, and we received one quantity for 3000, and also we have invoiced it for same one quantity 3000. Okay, so now I'll have to change this amount. Okay, so I'll just say save and validate. So now if I have available prepayments, so I can simply say apply and close this invoice. So I can say apply. Okay, so now this invoice is applied and the balance is 37,000. Okay, so I can say just validate. So this invoice status will get changed to validate. Okay, so this is basically the P2P flow. Okay, so since I have applied this prepayment, if you see, so the applied prepayment is 3285 and the due, if you see, it is 0, which means I don't need to pay for this particular invoice. Okay, so this is basically the P2P flow. Any question? Okay. So the next one that I have is basically, so we have seen this one, this, and then I have the invoice approval. Okay. Okay, so maybe we'll see the approval. So this is simple setup that we have. So first thing is that, so I will have to enable the approval first. Okay, so where I can enable the approval is that, so if I go to financial offering, so I have this payables. So under this invoice options. So I'll have to select the business unit. Okay, so the business unit that I am using is US1 business unit. So I'll select this one. Okay, so here if we come down, so if you notice here, so the invoice approval is not enabled. So I'll just enable, and related to invoice, so I have other options as well. So do I require validation before approval? So I can just say validate before approval, and then the accounting preference. So whether I wanted to account before approval or accounting after approval. So usually it is after approval is the accounting, and approval is before validation. Sorry, after validation. Okay, so I have enabled this. So this is first step, and second step is to go to this option. So I'll just say all task. So here Yeah, so this is the option, that is manage payable workflow rules. Okay, so this is the screen. So here, if you notice, so we have this option to basically upload the rules. So now, whatever the latest file that has been uploaded, so I'll see here. So since I do not have any approval that is configured in the system, so I'm seeing this as this thing. Okay, so now let me first download the template. So all are same. So you can just click this option called invoice approval basic template. So this will download the Excel file. Okay, so which I can open here. Yeah, I think I will have to remove this. So yeah, so this is the one. So I'll just say unblock and okay, and open the approval this thing. Okay, so here in the approval workflow, so there are multiple options that I can see. So first thing is that if I want to say auto approve, so auto approve something kind of an automatically system will approve this transaction. Okay, so this will be a scenario where if I do not want any managers to review if the transaction is below 1,000 rupees. Okay, so this anyway I don't need verifications. Okay, so I can say if it is below, so this approval will work in a way that if this condition is satisfied, then either send it for approval or approve automatically. So in this case, we are saying condition is amount is below 1,000 and approve this. Okay. And then if I want to give directly, this is the user. So now if this is the, let's say, pay group. So if this is the pay group, I wanted to directly send this notification to user A. Okay. So I can say this is user. Okay, and then I also have the supervisory hierarchy. So for this we will need sort of an what do you call the approval to manager and the subordinate sync that we will need. Okay, so for which we will need this job position, all those things. Okay, so that is after the HCM component that they have configured. So then we'll have the job position, all those things. Okay, so that is one thing. And second thing is that if I want to use only the standard one, that is if I go to manage user, so wherein I will have my manager attached to my login. So if I want to use that option, so that I can use it. But if I want to use basically based on this, that is if I want to route the approval based on the position. So let's say I am into procurement team. So I am the procurement preparer. So above me I have my manager, procurement manager. Above that I have the procurement head. Okay. So now what I will do is that so I'll have my manager as the procurement manager. Okay, so if this is the case, I can use this. But if I want to set this position and based on that I want to route, so I will need this HCM role and then HCM user that needs to be configured with the position. Okay, so for this demonstration, what we will do is that so we'll take this group and serial. So now what is this? So let me just remove this. Okay, so now what is this group in serial? So there are two things that you will see under group. So one is that serial and the other one is parallel. So parallel is a scenario where if I am sending this request to multiple approvers, so let's say I have two approvers. So if one approves, then this particular approval flow will stop, which means that if my manager one approves, so which means that I can consider this invoices approved. Okay, so the serial is nothing but I will have two managers above me, wherein I am basically the accountant. So I wanted to get approval from the accounting manager, and also I want to get it approved by the finance head or whoever it is. Okay, so now in this scenario, so I wanted to basically have this multiple groups that is created. So now instead of creating a big chain of approval, so what I can do is that, so simply I can use this group. So what exactly is group? So group is nothing but it's an way of defining the hierarchy. So for this, I'll have to go to the BPM work list. Okay, so I'll go to the BPM work list. So here, so there are multiple modules that we can use to go to the BPM work list. Okay, so in this case, I'm taking journal approval rules. So this will take me to the BPM work list. So this will be opened in a separate this thing screen. So you can see it is BPM work list, and here I'm not setting the approval, so I'm just defining the approval group. So I can go to the approval group. So since this is test environment, so we have multiple users here. Okay, so I'll just say add. So I'll just name this as approval group. Okay, and then here I can say, so this will be sent to probably, so for this I'll need a separate user. So for now I'm taking this user. Okay, so that is lee.f3. So this is the user that I have taken. So okay, so this is T1. So I'll just say okay. So now I can save this. So meaning, so I have only one manager. So if I want to add more, so simply I can click this and I can add. Okay, so which will add multiple this thing. Okay, so what I'll do is that I'll copy this and I'll just paste this here. Okay, and then this is where basically I'm setting the parameter. Okay, so now the parameter that I have is less than, so let me call this as less than or more than 1000. Okay, so automatically this approval will be sent to the manager. So this is Lee is the manager. Okay, so now I have created this rule. So it's not limited to only this condition. So you have multiple conditions that you can create. So I'll just show based on what we can create. Okay, so if this is the business unit, then I can create. So of course the amount is what we have taken. Okay, or probably let's say I don't want to take the amount. So based on the source I wanted to route, or based on the invoice type I want to route, or if I want to route based on the DFF or the additional information. So there are a lot of fields that we have. So based on that, we can route. So this is only the invoice header. So if you remember, so when we created this invoice, so we saw for an invoice, so we have three things. So one is the header information, line information, and the distribution information. Okay. So similarly here, we can capture the information at any level. Okay. So in this case, I'm capturing only the header level information. So this part, what we are talking about is only the condition. So that is starting from column R. So whatever we are seeing. So this is condition basically. Okay. So, I'll just okay. So okay. Before that, I'll check. Yeah. So I'll just delete these two because if I'm not doing this, so this will be uploaded. So to avoid this, I'm just deleting this, and I'll say generate rule file. Okay, so for this we cannot upload using the space and this thing, so I'll just save this file. Okay, so probably I'll just put it in the downloads, or I'll put it in the documents saying this is today's date. I'm just giving, and I'll remove the spaces because this rule file will not accept the space. Okay, I'll say save. So now this rule file is generated. So what I can do is that, so I can go back to this invoice approval screen. Okay, so I'll say all task. So here I can find the invoice approval. Okay, so now the file is ready. So I can just click this upload and I can choose the file. So the file that we created is this. If I come down, yeah, it is here. Okay, so I'll just say submit. So now this will trigger the process, and this process will make sure that we must upload a file that must be in zip file. Okay, I did not select the zip file. Okay. Yeah, so now we can see. So probably this zip file did not generate, so it is only the Excel file. But usually the zip file and Excel file will be generated. So Excel file is for our reference. Okay. So just to understand, so what is the detail that we have uploaded? Okay. But then the zip file is the actual format which Oracle will accept. Okay. So this message you can ignore because this says only that this will override the previous one. Okay, so in our case, so we do not have the last successful upload, so we downloaded the file and we uploaded. But then if I have the latest file, so I'll have to download this, because if I have already, let's say, 10 rules that is written in the system, so I cannot create a new rules because I'll have to add my rules to the existing one. Okay, so that's the reason it will just give something like a warning which says that the rules that we are uploading, so that will be overwritten. Okay, so now we can see this is uploaded. Okay, so what I will do is that, so I'll create one manual invoice and we'll see how this approval is being triggered. Okay. So I'll just say create invoice. I'll use the same information. Okay, so again this is 10,000, and the distribution set, I'm using the same distribution set. I'll just say validate. Okay, so let me just validate this. So if you remember in our invoice options, so we gave that unless this invoice is validated, so I cannot initiate the approval. So that's the reason first I'm validating this invoice. Okay. Okay, so this basically just validates if this is an duplicate invoice. Okay, so that's about it. Okay, the amount that I have is same. Okay, the invoice is validated. Okay, so now if I try to post, it will not allow because I will have to initiate the approval. So I'll just say approval and initiate. So now if you see, or if you click this option validated, so the approval status, if you see, so this will get changed. This will get changed to initiated. Okay, so now I will have to log out and log in into that particular user. Okay, so before that, let me check if this is assigned to that particular manager. Okay.
So on the invoice itself, we can
Yeah.
see, no?
Yeah, invoice it will show you only when this is basically assigned, which means that now I have initiated. So if this is assigned to probably the manager 1, 2, or 3, so that is when I'll see this. Or probably let's say I have two managers. So now I wanted to see till which manager this particular request is approved. So these information I can see here, but if this is failed due to some reason, so those information I'll not be able to see here, so for which I'll have to go to the transaction console.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, yeah, so I'll just go to transaction console and check once. Okay, so Okay, or let me just log out and check if the notification is assigned to this user. Okay, so this is the login credentials. Okay. Okay, so this has not assigned yet, so which this manager should be getting it basically. Okay. Okay, maybe meanwhile I'll just explain. So here, if you see, so this is the manager login. So if I click this notification, so I'll see here, or if I want to probably look at the detailed information, so I can go to the work list. Okay, so this work list will give me the total approval. So it could be this manager could have the approval request that is coming from procurement, that is coming from finance and the other departments as well. So now all those notifications will come to this one. So when we say notification, it is not only the actionable notification, even the FOI notification will come to this place. So what we saw here, so that is FOI information, which means that I'll just read that information and leave that. So I don't need to act upon that particular notification. Okay. And then if I have initiated any task that I can see here, but I have not initiated any task, so administrative task is something that I can see overall. So I can see if this notification is sent to Mr. A, B, C, all those things I can see. Okay, so here if you see, so this is at whole, which means that your inbound transaction, your category, your change request, all those things. Okay. Okay, let me try to log out once and see if there is any issue with the approval that we have sent.
Okay.
I guess ideally the flow is simple because once we initiate it, the manager will get it because the rule or the condition also. So we did not write it in a complex way. So we just said if it is above 1,000, so this should be sent for approval. Okay, so that's the reason we created that particular invoice for 10,000 rupees. So ideally that should be assigned. Somehow this has failed. Let me try this because I'm not sure if I gave less than 1,000. I believe I have changed the amount. Let me try to change the amount. Yeah, this is the one. So let me withdraw this particular approval request. And let me change this amount to 700. And let me change this also. Okay, so let me try to validate. Okay, the distribution variance. Yeah, so this is validated. So let me try to resubmit. Yeah, so this is submitted. Yeah, so now this is assigned to Lee. So what has happened is that, so instead of giving more than 1000, so we have given less than 1000. So it is the sign that we did not notice. So that's why the rule has changed. Okay, so the rule is working fine. So now I'll just log out and log in as Lee. Okay, so now this notification should have been received in Lee's login. Okay, so yeah, so now if you see, so this is the invoice that we created. Okay, that is 78 OP. So this is the invoice number. So if I want to approve, so simply I can approve or reject. Or if I want to see more details, I can click this notification. Okay, so because this is actionable notification. So here I can see this is for the supplier and the business unit is this, and I can see the breakup, that is the net amount, that is 766 is of the base amount 700 and tax of 66.50. Okay, and the breakup and all those details are available at bottom of the screen. Okay, so which I can do an approve, or if I want to review the invoice, I can just say view invoice. Okay, So for now, I'm just saying approve. Okay, so apart from that, what this person can do is that edit the distribution. So this person will be able to edit the distribution or request for information and withdraw, add comments, attachment, all those options this manager can do. Okay, so I'll just say approve. So the way that we configure this approval is that so this approval will go to one manager. So this manager, if this is approved, so then this invoice status will change to approved. Okay. So now we have approved this invoice. So I'll go back to the application screen. So now the status of the invoice will get changed to approved. Okay. So the status will still show as validated, but then if I see the approval status, the status will be approved because we created with one approval. So if I have more than one, then I can see there in the approval notification history. Okay. So that is the process. Any question till now?
No worries. Yeah.
Okay. So since this is already 9:30, so probably we can
Sure.
wind up with this, and
Oh,
next class maybe we can meet.
continue. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Evan.
you. Yeah. Thank you.